Is it just me, or does Batman Returns not feel like a sequel to Batman 89? Also, am I the only one that thinks that Batman 89 didn't need a sequel? It's funny that I say that, since Tim Burton didn't want to do a sequel originally unless it offered him something new and exciting. In his case, more creative control and replacing Sam Hamm, as he didn't like his script with Penguin and Catwoman going after hidden treasure. Yeah, that sounds a bit too much like a Golden Age story. So in the meantime, Burton directed Edward Scissorhands, which I could have swore was a Warner Brothers movie, but it's not. Burton brought on Daniel Waters, who impressed Tim Burton with his work on the movie Heathers. Waters was interested in a story where the true villains don't necessarily wear costumes. Yeah, no shit. There was one other comment that Daniel Waters made, but I'll get to that later in the video. Robin originally was slated to appear in the movie, but Waters thought that the film already had too many characters, and he also called Robin the most worthless character in the world, especially with Batman as the loner of all loners. First of all, Waters, go f*** yourself. Secondly, Robin is meant to be not only Batman's partner in crime, but kind of someone that brings the light in the darkest of times. He's meant to be someone who helps Batman, and in a way is Batman at a younger age, and someone who knows what it's like to go through what Bruce did, but isn't as psychologically damaged. Alfred may be Bruce's second father, but Dick Grayson is Bruce's first son. And thirdly, go f*** yourself, Waters. Nobody says that about the sensational find of 1940 and gets away with it. The one odd thing about Robin being in the film is that Marlon Wayans was casted. He attended a wardrobe fitting, but the character was shelved for the next film. This right here just raises so many questions. Out of all the actors you could have chosen, why Marlon Wayans? Did he have a good audition or something? Just a little bit before principal photography was to start, Burton brought on Wesley Stick for script punch-ups. The big problem was that Penguin had no master plan for the third act's big climax. The film was kept under wraps. Why that's the case? Who knows? Maybe Warner Brothers had a lot of confidence in this movie's script and in Tim Burton, because if you look at the production notes, they spent the big bucks on this movie.
Above Gotham looms its greatest hero.
Now, with all that's given, how does the movie hold up 30 years later? And to us comic book fans, how does it hold up in terms of comic accuracy? All this and more will be answered in due time. The beginning of the movie starts off with Penguin being born and his parents discarding him shortly into the river. The thing is, the Cobblepots second-guessed their decision as fast as they made it. Being found and raised in the sewers, 33 years pass, so think about this. Penguin was down in the sewers living life, while Joker was doing his thing in the previous movie. Why it took him this long to come up to the surface, who knows. Anyway, it's Christmas time in Gotham City, and all major characters are introduced seamlessly in the first 20 minutes. I have to applaud that. Penguin lived in the sewers his whole life. He's seen as a freak and sometimes plays the part. He wants to open his horizons. He wants respect and to know who his birth parents are. Of course, some of this is seen as affront to Bruce, who surprisingly doesn't have much to do in this movie other than to stop the bad guys. Most of his development is linked to the other supervillain of this movie, Selina Kyle, who are both social outcasts in the movie, but share a love connection. It's believable enough on screen. She's a nerdy secretary that seems to get screwed over every time she's on screen, at least in the beginning, until she gets her powers. Yeah, this version is abnormal, to say the least, and a movie with a lot of abnormal moments. She dies and gets revived by cats and somehow gains their abilities. She just couldn't be an orphan that had acrobatic skills and was a great thief. Waters made her this nerdy secretary that becomes the villain due to a rich-ass hat pushing her to the wayside, which in her case is very much true. She has relationship problems with men and doesn't exactly have any stability in that department. Okay. Waters didn't like how Sam Hamm had written her in his script, where he said, "The way comic books in general treat women like fetishy sexual fantasy." So he says this, but then makes her emotionally weak and a pushover that no one gives a second thought to, and then on top of that, Waters is giving Sam crap for that. But he goes and does the same shit in his script. You're acting like women don't like being seen as hot, pretty, or sexy, when a lot do want to be seen in that light. It's attractive. Also, this whole notion of women in comics being treated like fetish sexual fantasies doesn't even have any footing at the time this movie was written. Sure, in the 80s it was getting out of hand with all the creative freedom writers and artists were starting to get, but before that, things were tame. You're gonna tell me that awesome characters like Wonder Woman, Elektra, Scarlet Witch, Storm, and the Invisible Woman are sexual fantasies with no depth for readers? Get the fuck out of here with that, you fucking idiot. With all the dumb shit that he said so far, it's no wonder that Wesley was brought on to do rewrites to fix his mistakes. He's obviously another so-called creative that doesn't respect comic books, and yet he decided to write the script for the movie anyways. The last major character is Max Schreck, a business type that wants to make a plant that creates energy, but the mayor is in the way. Max is a very shady, selfish guy. Although he is a caring father, putting himself to shield his son, and also wants to leave something behind for his son to have once he passes, he'll do whatever it takes to make this plant, even if he has to break a few eggs getting there. Max Schreck is truly the real villain of Batman Returns. The writing is a mixed bag for me personally. On one hand, there's a lot of good dialogue exchanges and scenes, and then on the other, a lot of scenes feel very mean-spirited towards its characters. Which, what can you expect when the guy that wrote one fucked up movie wrote this? I'm not saying I wanted a happy ending where everything turns out alright. In fact, I love stories with dark endings, but you can never go too far in one direction because then you're just being edgy. And clearly Warner Brothers didn't learn their lesson about edgy creatives making movies about their DC IPs when they hired Zack Snyder 2 decades later. History keeps repeating itself. The casting is great nonetheless. Michael Keaton in this movie gets less screen time and focus, but hey, at least he got a bigger payday. Annette Bening was originally casted as Selina Kyle, but dropped out due to her pregnancy, so the role was up for grabs. There was numerous actresses that wanted this role. Then Burton met Michelle Pfeiffer and was convinced to cast her after one meeting. She got paid $3 million, and just like Jack Nicholson for Batman '89, she too would take a percentage of the box office for her respective film. See what I mean when I said the big bucks were spent on this movie? Danny DeVito's casting was subconscious, as there was not many that could have played the part of Penguin to begin with. And you know, even though I don't agree with the writing decisions for these villains, because Catwoman is supposed to be a stray that every man is vying for and trying to tie down, but they can't because she's a wild card, and Penguin may have an abnormal appearance, but he's actually a sophisticated human being despite this. That's how they are in the comics, but in the movie, that's not how they are at all. They're played more from the abnormal angles of the characters, and even though I didn't like it, Danny DeVito and Michelle Pfeiffer's performances are the best part of this movie, hands down. Bravo. Take a bow. Michael Keaton and Christopher Walken do a great job with what they're given, despite having less screen time compared to the two supervillains of the movie. But Batman's over here killing criminals again. Not cool. The soundtrack is another one of Danny Elfman's gems. He apparently didn't get too much creative freedom from Batman '89, which I couldn't have noticed because that was his A game there. Here he goes all out on the score. It's pure Danny Elfman, and I love it. The music pieces just scream Gothic Christmas. They're very dark, atmospheric like most Elfman scores, and it's haunting in a sense. Danny Elfman is a legend, and this score is one of the many reasons why. Tim Burton's stylish Gotham City is brought back, but with a Christmas theme this time around, and it looks glorious. Not to mention he went all out on the direction. There's various stylistic shots in this movie. They're so good. The makeup is another thing I wanted to praise, because aside from the voice, you can't tell that it's Danny DeVito playing the Penguin. Same can be said for Michelle Pfeiffer, who goes through a transformation from a nerdy secretary to Michelle Pfeiffer. I always chuckle during the scenes with Bruce and Selina early on in the movie, because they're trying so hard to act like normal people and have a normal conversation, but they fail at it because they're both trying to conceal secrets. I love the costume designs as they revamped Batman's costume in this movie, and I even like the latex suit they gave Catwoman. Now, for the remainder of my negatives. Well, aside from how the characters are written drastically different from the source material, Batman being a side character in his own movie with not too much development this time around, and there being too many characters in the movie, having 3 villains and then the combo characters like Alfred and Jim Gordon having minimal screen time, the movie feels really mean-spirited. It almost feels anti-Christmas. That's kind of funny. With all that's given, and the movie's release in the summer of 1992, reception was positive, it made money, Warner Brothers wanted to do a Catwoman spin-off film with Michelle Pfeiffer, and parents were angry at how dark it was. Yeah, that happened. I know that trailers didn't show the warning signs to parents back then that, hey, you don't want your kid to see this movie, but because I guess they felt like Batman 89 only skirt the line a few times, they thought Batman Returns would be a good time for the whole family to watch. And you fools! Batman Returns skirted the line numerous times and then crossed it by a mile. Parents were trying to shield their children from the dark reality that is adulthood. It sucks. By the time the movie came out, it was too late. Parents sent angry letters to both companies, and neither Warner Brothers or McDonald's was willing to take responsibility. But they did point fingers. What ended up happening was the beginning of the end for this respective franchise, as Warner Brothers wanted to go in a safer, more marketable, family-friendly route to save this gravy train. Joel Schumacher was brought in for the next 2 sequels, and I'm gonna say it right now, those 2 movies weren't his fault. He wanted to do a Batman Year One type movie, or just a dark Batman movie in general. He's got the chops to do a psychological Batman film. Have you seen Falling Down? The problem is Warner Brothers wasn't going to do that and wanted to win parents and McDonald's over, mainly so they can get that sweet, sweet green in their pockets. Typical board of executive way of thinking. Joel didn't walk away from this and decided to play ball. The rest you could say was out of his hands, as Warner Brothers just wanted to use the next 2 movies as 2-hour-long commercials. Michelle Pfeiffer never got to play Catwoman again, as her spinoff never got off the ground after Batman Forever released. Michael Keaton left after finding out that they were going for a more family-friendly route, and was even offered a bigger payday than his pay for Batman 89 and Batman Returns combined, but he still walked away. I respect that a lot. Always take artistic integrity over a massive payday. So at the time, that seemed like the end of Burton's Batman. Until this year. When Batman 89 screenwriter Sam Hamm was given the go-ahead to make a script for a 3rd proposed Batman film into a comic book miniseries simply titled Batman 89. This comic ignores the 2 sequels after Batman Returns and continues a story. I haven't read it yet, but I'd love to read it and then do a full review for it sometime next month when the last issue drops. But for now, I should wrap up this review. Batman Returns is decent. If I ever want to celebrate Christmas Gotham City style, I always have the 2 Batman the Animated Series Christmas episodes, Batman Arkham Origins, and the various Christmas issues from the comics. So, have a Merry Christmas, don't eat the mistletoe, have a Happy New Year from me to you. I'm Leonard Mars of the MSA Productions crew, and I'll see you in 2022.